Hey everybody, CVH here, and it's that time of the month again. The Elder Scrolls Legends Ladder season is quickly coming to a close for the month of May. This is the third season after the official PC launch of the game, and as you all are probably well aware right by now, if you've been playing the game for an extended period of time, every single season we get a new monthly reward card for achieving a higher rank in ranked play that's going to be available the first of the following month. We've just seen the reveal of the May monthly reward card, so as I like to do every month, I'm going to take a look at it, offer my first impressions, try to analyze whether it's good, whether it's bad, what kinds of decks it'll fit in, and if it'll basically make an impact in constructed period. There we have it, Protector of the Main, 5 Magicka Monk class card in agility and willpower, obviously. For Drain Guard, when you gain health, Protector of the Main gains +1/+1. It's important to note that this effect does not care how much life you're gaining, it is going to gain +1/+1 every time you, the player, gains health. Although if you gain 5 life or 1 life, it doesn't matter either way, Protector of the Main is simply going to gain +1/+1 of stats. Protector of the Main has some obvious similarities to Sower of Revenge because it is a class-specific card. This will make Protector of the Main the second class-specific monthly reward card we've seen after the Sower, and the similarities don't really stop there. They're both 5 Magicka cost. The stat lines, while not identical, Sower is a 5/5, they are pretty close. This is a 4/4, just a bit off, and they both also have Guard. That said, the implications of the effects and the rest of the cards do vastly different things, and that led someone in my chat earlier today to call Protector of the Main the anti-Sower of Revenge. Not so much in that Protector of the Main counters Sower of Revenge, which it really doesn't, but it does do quite different things. They're kind of on the polar opposite ends of the spectrum, not only in the class that they are, or the attributes, but also in the way their effect impacts the game. Protector of the Main is just a very defensive card, while Sower of Revenge's Last Gasp, dealing that 5 damage to the enemy hero, is actually very offensive. How I like to go about these kind of things is really think about the types of decks that already exist, and think about where it might fit into the existing array of decks in the metagame. And this is especially relevant for a standalone release such as a monthly reward card, because unlike the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood expansion or the Madhouse collection, Protector of the Main is the only card going to be releasing when it is going to be releasing. So it's not like we have all these other unknown factors to have to try to analyze while we're talking about how good Protector of the Main could be. This will be the only thing really impacting the metagame. So it is a monk card, and it is defensive. It has the Drain and the Guard, which is pretty good at stopping opposing aggression, so it could be pretty reasonable in Control Monk. I could maybe make the case to put it in more of an aggressive monk, maybe a mid-range deck, although the Drain and the Guard, these are mostly defensive. You could probably use the Drain to help race an opponent. The thing about that is, though, Pilfer Monk is kind of the only direction to take mid-range monk at the moment, and it's just simply not very good. I don't see Protector of the Main really changing that. In addition, most of the aggressive decks you'll see, even in Monk, are kind of light on healing effects in general. You're more likely to get the buff out of this card through itself if you're playing a deck like that, although Broom of Profiteer and Dawnstar Healer could come into play. I do give this card some serious points for versatility. Its stats are pretty reasonable. It does die to Lightning Bolt, which is unfortunate for any card that costs 4 Magicka or above to just die to that one card, but that's not all we can base a card off of as well. And I also mentioned the Broom of Profiteer. If you have a Broom of Profiteer on the board, which is giving you 1 health every time you play a creature from your hand, or every time you play a creature to the board, doesn't actually have to be from your hand, Protector of the Main is going to come down and immediately get the buff and go up to a 5-drop 5/5 Guard. That's already pretty good, and you're adding Drain to that as well. So when you're up against an aggressive opponent, or anyone who's just being more aggressive than you, Protector of the Main can immediately start blocking damage since it does have the Guard, and if your opponent is unable to clear the Guard, or if you've already stabilized, it has that versatility in that it doesn't actually lose value on the board even if you don't need a Guard. It can start hitting, it can start draining, it can sort of act like an even more durable Moonlight Werebat since it can start trading with things and getting that 4 points of drain at least. If it's allowed to stick on the board for multiple turns after it can start attacking, that's just going to increase the value of the drain little by little until all of a sudden you're just out of range of whatever aggressive strategy your opponent's playing. Based on those points for versatility alone that we just went over, I could see Protector of the Main seeing a substantial amount of play in Control Monk. One of the issues with the deck is the 5-drop slot. There are quite a few different options you can play when you're playing Control Monk that cost 5 Magicka and are creatures, so I'm not exactly sure where this card will fit in the build. I do think, based on its versatility alone, that it will probably warrant it seeing play over the others, but it's worth taking a look at some of the options that are seeing play now in Control Monk at the 5-drop slot to maybe see what kind of conclusions we can draw. I don't think anyone's really going to consider taking out a Nasi for this card, so I'm going to skip over that one. It's a very unique effect, but we can start by talking about Stronghold Eradicator, the neutral card that has seen a good amount of play in these control monk lists, mostly because a very solid 5-drop was sort of lacking in the class. We also don't have Silence in Monk, so this card giving other enemy creatures guard in the lane, that can lead to some kills with lethal creatures you might have when something was covered in the shadow lane. That's a pretty unique effect. Some people have cut this for additional healing in the deck, however, so if it turns out that you're using Stronghold Eradicator primarily defensively, as opposed to in a version of Control Monk trying to put more pressure on, I do think Protector of the Main could do the job better. Speaking of healing 5-drops, we have the pair of Pillaging Tribune and Knight of the Hour. Knight of the Hour obviously new from the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood, and Pillaging Tribune has been more or less an inclusion in control decks since early open beta, I would say, even though it did see a nerf a long time ago. The issue with Pillaging Tribune is that you have to have something already powerful on the board if you want the drain to happen. The issue with Protector of the Main is that Protector of the Main itself has to live for a turn if you want the drain. However, since it already has guard, it can then impact the board immediately. If you're staring down an opposing threat or an opposing army of little threats and you don't have anything on your side of the board, Pillaging Tribune is pretty much not going to be doing anything except for setting up for a future Pillaging Tribune, whereas if you play the Protector of the Main, you may not be gaining life immediately, but you can at least lose less life immediately, and sometimes that's just as good, and if it lives for a turn, obviously you can then drain. So if we're looking for a card that is good more often than not, I think Protector of the Main is probably better. The issue is whether or not you need that large swing turn provided by a large Pillaging Tribune. Once you get into those later stages like turns 8, 9, and 10 and you start having those larger creatures on the board, Pillaging Tribune can obviously provide a bigger swing in life at those stages of the game. Knight of the Hour, another very simple card, another good healing option for these control decks that has seen a fair bit of play as well. The issue with Knight of the Hour, while it does have Prophecy, which we should give it credit for, it's very, very powerful off of a first or second rune destruction, especially, obviously, as most Prophecies are against an aggressive deck. The issue with the card is that its stats are just not very good. Obviously, it's weaker than every other card we've mentioned so far that costs 5 Magicka, so this is really a defensive option only in Control Monk. And I'm not exactly sure if we need something quite this defensive only, because Protector of the Main, very defensive when you play it from your hand, sometimes even a higher impact than Knight of the Hour. It's going to have more stats, it's going to be guarding for more, and if it lives, it's going to start draining. But the issue with Knight of the Hour also is that if you're up against another slower deck, it's just not going to be putting enough on the board. If you're up against Control Mage and you're trying to start pressuring, whereas a card like even Pillaging Tribune or Stronghold Eradicator that we've mentioned can actually put a substantial creature presence on the board, Knight of the Hour simply cannot. It even gets Ice Stormed. So if you're going to take a little bit of the middle road there, a happy medium would be Protector of the Main. The 4/4 is going to leave it susceptible to Lightning Bolt unless you already are able to drain immediately or heal immediately with the Broom of Profiteer or something like that. But it does offer the ability to grow. So if you're able to have it survive for a turn, it can then become a 5/5, and that could just make it a little bit more annoying to deal with as the game goes on. So if you are in a slower mirror match and you're eventually trying to turn up the heat, that's where this card definitely has more versatility than Knight of the Hour. Basically, my conclusions against the other 5-drops, especially the healing 5-drops and Tribune and Knight of the Hour, in the context of Control Monk, I wouldn't say that Protector of the Main does the healing job particularly as well as Pillaging Tribune, and I don't think it does the strict defensive role as well as Knight of the Hour, which is very good against aggro but weak against other decks. But I think Protector of the Main does them well enough, and I think it's probably versatile enough to warrant that it might be included over those cards. It definitely does have some benefits over Pillaging Tribune and Knight of the Hour depending on the situation, and there aren't really too many situations where it's strictly bad unless you play it without getting a heal immediately against a slower blue deck and they immediately have the Lightning Bolt. That's not really where you want your opponent's Lightning Bolts to go, killing your 5-drop 1-for-1. However, in every other situation, I think it's kind of reasonable. It's definitely a powerhouse against aggro decks from your hand. Even though costing 5, it's not the cheapest thing against aggro. You do want something to keep up that defensive role on turn 5. The worst thing to possibly do is miss a critical turn and let your opponent get back on the board, back to pressuring you. So this is immediately going to put a guard up that they have to deal with immediately or dump damage into, or it's going to drain and then further put them out of range of killing you. So I like the card. I'm excited about this monthly reward card more so than a lot of the ones in the past. On first glance, comparing it strictly to last month's card, Chorus Breeding Pit, I would be shocked if this card doesn't see a whole lot more play than the Breeding Pit. We kind of wrote that one off, for starters, as being probably too expensive for most decks. Protector of the Main doesn't suffer from that. I don't know if it's as good as Sower of Revenge. I'm just going to say it's not, because Sower of Revenge is kind of crazy in the context of most warrior decks now, even the aggressive ones, the slow ones, all of those decks. But I would probably put Protector of the Main in the post-release reward cards that we've seen so far, right behind Sower of Revenge and power level, above Chorus Breeding Pit, and maybe even something around the third best overall after the Sower of Revenge and the Histgrove, which sees a lot of play in ramp decks, obviously, is kind of the reason they exist. But Protector of the Main, just a solid card overall, not going to be generating any new styles of decks by itself. I've seen some people talk about some gimmicky strategies involving maybe green, Touched Spriggan, Leafwater Blessing, just buffing the hell out of this card. I think the buff is more so just icing on the cake to keep this card resilient against removal, and I think it does a good job of that. Hopefully I'm not wrong, because I would enjoy this card seeing play. More options for Monk, always welcome. I do think this card, as I mentioned, will be more of a benefit to the slower versions of Monk fighting against the aggression than an aggressive mid-rangey type of Monk fighting against the control decks, although it could be used there as well, depending on the types of healing cards included in those decks, like Bruma Profiteer, Dawnstar Healer, and all that good stuff. But I do like the card. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know. Join the conversation. Let's analyze this card together. Do you think I've overrated it? Do you think I've underrated it? Where are you excited to play it? I'm assuming most people will be excited to play it in Control Monk, but I feel the need to ask this question anyway. Let me know where you're planning on putting this in your decks. Are you excited to get this for the monthly reward? What kind of cards would you like to see in the future monthly ladder rewards? As always, if you've enjoyed the analysis, feel free to leave a like. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. You'll catch all of these types of card analysis, first impression videos, gameplay content, deck techs for Legends, all that good stuff. Follow my stream in the description, and I will see you guys next time.